Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. There's a moment in almost every growing company where marketing stops feeling fun and starts feeling frustrating. You're spending more money than ever. You've hired good people. You've added channels. You've got dashboards everywhere. And yet growth feels harder than it did 2 years ago. The CEO is wondering why marketing can't drive more predictable results. The CFO is wondering where the ROI actually is. Sales is asking for more leads. And marketing feels like it's stuck proving its worth instead of shaping the future of the business. Today's guest has spent the last decade inside that exact moment helping companies through it. Jennifer Zick is the founder and CEO of Authentic Brands, where she and her team serve as fractional CMOs for scaling companies. She's helped hundreds of organizations move beyond what she calls random acts of marketing and build marketing leadership that actually connects to revenue, operations, and long-term enterprise value. In this episode, we talk about the little M dilemma, the stage where marketing is stuck in tactics when the business actually needs strategy. Jennifer, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thanks so much, William. I'm delighted to be here, and that was a very thoughtful and thorough introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Jennifer, I always like to give a shout out to whoever introduced us. And so I want to give a shout out to Tom Darrow. He's the CEO over at Critical Coordination. He's the one who put us in touch for the second time, actually. You and I had met at like an EO event years before that. But the funny thing about Tom is his daughter is actually on my fourth grade girls basketball team. So I'm helping coach my daughters in fourth grade, and we're on this team. So much fun with this. I actually might be having more fun than the kids are. I've got, what was it I doing the other day? I had dried insects and I brought them to practice. All right, whoever's last in their killers has to eat, this dried cricket kind of thing. And they're just screaming and like, no, we don't want to do it. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I thank God for parents like you who step into the trenches and have the joy and the energy to do that. I'm not a youth sports coach. I volunteer in a lot of other ways. I was a cheerleader, so they don't want me coaching nice. Anyway. But I'm always in the stands cheering for my kiddos. And I'm so grateful to Tom, who's one of our, very valued clients at Authentic, for putting us in touch and for reconnecting us. Turns out we have a lot of friends in common and we have a lot of topics in common that we love. So I'm excited for this chat today.
It's going to be a fun one. Last interruption, and we'll get right into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, Jennifer, you've said that most companies grow through these random acts of marketing. Is that a mistake, or is that actually the necessary first phase of growth?
It's like puberty. It's just unavoidable. And our tagline, which is overcome random acts of marketing, came to me really accidentally in one of my early conversations with some clients when I was first getting Authentic off the ground. I was in a meeting with a CEO and a CFO, and they were sharing some of the pains and frustrations that they were experiencing and questions that they had around marketing. And the phrase random acts of marketing came out of my mouth, and they both looked at each other with eyes wide and then nervous giggling, and I knew I had hit a nerve. And so I tested that phrase over and over with other clients as we grew the business, and it always hits a funny bone or hits a painful nerve. And that's because every business will experience a period of random acts of marketing. So it's nothing to feel bad about. It's nothing to feel like it's you're doing something wrong. It's the natural growth pain of an evolving business. And that's because every business begins at the beginning with founder or founders that have a hypothesis or a product or a service that they're ready to bring to the world. But as you bring a hypothesis or a product or a service to the market tells you what it thinks about that, and it reshapes your hypothesis. And so founding brands are constantly evolving. They're constantly re-articulating the value prop or who they're going to market to serve and their ideal audience. And so that's a natural evolution. And they are also founder-led businesses that have to be sales-driven first, because you don't have a business until you have a solution you can sell multiple times in order to have a business that exists and has operational critical mass. So those random acts of marketing are simply the trying on of many different skins that happen along the way, and the execution of the tactics you have to have just to be in business. And eventually growing companies will reach a point where they know that to scale, they need to overcome random acts and make marketing a true strategic partner in the business. That's often where authentic enters the conversation.
So not a bad thing, the necessary thing, but you got to grow up a little bit. You got to get past the squeaky voice and get to the point where you're doing something better. When founders say that marketing isn't working, then what are they actually frustrated with?
Yeah, I like to use a lot of like word pictures to describe what the feelings are behind random acts of marketing. So some of the word pictures I use are like rolling the dice, right? It's a gamble. Or the disco ball, shiny objects. We're just chasing shiny objects. Or like a large black hole that your money's just being thrown down. Sure. The vacuum. These are all like word pictures that resonate for executives who are spending money and aligning resources to do marketing, but they lack the clarity and confidence to know that the marketing activities that are happening in the right sequence, toward the right audiences, toward the right outcomes, in some kind of way that is scalable, repeatable, predictable, and valuable for the actual business. So that's what it feels like, the random acts of marketing.
I remember talking to a large company and they were spending money on their blog, and they were spending, I don't remember how much, let's just say $500 a blog post, which is at the time, years ago, that was a decent amount of money to be spending on a blog post. And I was looking at it, I was like, well, how much traffic are you getting? And it's like maybe 100 visitors a month, right? How many shares you get? 0. How many comments? 0. And so it's like, this is the equivalent of vitamins, where they say like vitamins, you just kind of like pee most of them out kind of thing, right? Like that's all you're doing. You're spending money and there's absolutely nothing that you can actually show for what you're doing. You're just wasting the money on this, versus maybe going to that next level in this situation where there was the opportunity, maybe like $1,000 blog post by a team that actually knows what they're doing. You're actually going to get some ROI from that. And sometimes it's hard to make that jump to go a little bit more when you feel like you're already not getting something from what you are investing in.
Well, that's exactly right. And I just have to say, man, I'm already having fun on this podcast because we're talking about puberty and all kinds of really interesting things.
This is the potty episode.
Super engaging. But, I just actually came right before this conversation from a meeting with a prospect that was sharing with me so many very relatable experiences within their business. They have a marketing coordinator who's a creative person doing the best that she can do to keep their brand looking polished on social media and help create some posts and things that are good. And he said, and then we tried to evaluate those posts that we thought went further than others, right? We were looking at the posts that got more engagement. But when you peel the onion back, what they were seeing is that engagement was mostly coming from their own employees, right? And so while that can be helpful in amplifying that post and getting further reach it's not necessarily a metric that means anything. Yeah. And so some of the tools we've developed at Authentic within our methodology are the tools that teach our clients how to look at the metrics that matter. We have an actual tool called the Metrics Mountain that I can't fully visualize for you on a podcast, but at the bottom of the mountain, it's like the hierarchy of needs for survival, right?
Yeah.
If you think
Maslow.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. And at the bottom of the mountain is content. Okay, a blog post. Is it good or isn't it good? Well, that really depends, because if that piece of content isn't folded into a thoughtful campaign that knows how to wrap itself around different touch points, and if that campaign is not delivered through a channel that is actually a natural habitat for your audience, and if that channel isn't tied to conversion metrics, right? It has to ladder up to actual meaningful revenue and healthy growth and client satisfaction and LTV and CAC and all the things we like to talk about. So being good content by itself actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. That's true in so many things in life. Just being there, if you build it, they will come, and it's the farthest thing from the truth, right? You have to have a way of getting them there. Let's talk about the little M marketing a little bit. Define little M versus big M marketing.
Yeah. Well, and I want to preface my answer on this because this is a meaty subject and I can't wait to jump in. But I want to also recognize the fact that your audience is made up of a lot of really savvy e-commerce marketing folks. And I don't qualify to consult with them in the sense that my whole background has been in sales and marketing around B2B professional services, not commerce. The one thing I do well at Authentic is build a strong team that brings great CMOs in who are much wiser and deeper than me in different verticals and channel strategies. So I can't promise today to blow anybody's mind when it comes to e-commerce, but I do want to offer some kind of foundational philosophical perspectives around where growing businesses get hung up with marketing. So if some of this sounds more B2B or sounds more relevant in a different context, just know that's coming from out of my own mouth, from my own experience.
So I like that though. And here's why. So we do bring on people on that are not necessarily e-commerce experts because I really like lateral thinking. I find that by understanding the way the double helix in DNA works, we can maybe do better things over here within physics, right? Or if we're doing something in sales and we bring that over. I brought a lot of what we do, both my business partner, Jeff Snyder, and I have brought a lot of what we do in e-commerce from SaaS because we both came from a SaaS background. So I like the idea of bringing things from other areas and you're saying, I've got foundational thoughts, ideas, truths that I'm going to share. And then people can start to fill in the gaps, especially if they are savvy. So share your wisdom.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you for creating space on your platform for that variety of experience. So the little M dilemma. This is a platform, a thought platform that I started developing last year and I've been speaking about a lot. It was an aha moment that I actually had when I was working with a consulting partner. He's our EOS implementer because at Authentic we run on the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System. We were in an all-day offsite. And my implementer, who's known me for years and known my business for years, challenged me and he said, help me understand why Authentic philosophically believes that marketing should be a separate seat at the leadership table from sales, because many small growth businesses will tuck them together and say, here's a head of sales and marketing. So I got up to the whiteboard and I started drawing it, and this just came to life. And here's what I was articulating. So many founder-led, sales-driven growth companies that have achieved operating critical mass don't yet have a true strategic marketing leader on their team. Right? And marketing, if it exists at all within that business, it's led by a head of sales and marketing who 99% of the time is a head of sales, right? A sales manager. It might also be led by the founder because they are, quote unquote, the brand and they're the visionary, right? Yeah. So then they're in charge of marketing, but marketing is happening through lower level staff in the business or with agency partners externally, contractors. It's patched together with no true leader. When that happens, especially in organizations where marketing is sitting under sales leadership, the role of marketing becomes very limited. Little M dilemma. It's limited because it's being looked at through the lens of sales leadership. And that's a really important lens for a company to have. Like net new client acquisition, customer acquisition, and growth, revenue growth is really important. But when you put marketing under that lens, it generally looks like a hyper focus on brand building and demand gen and lead generation. And that's about it. Like get more at bats for us, bring more leads in the front door. What it fails to recognize is the critical role that big M marketing ought to be playing across the organization. So for those listening who understand what, the traditional sales funnel looks like, we think in terms of flipping that funnel from, the awareness that creates engagement that converts to a new client or customer into the expanded funnel on the other side for retention, delight, surprise, advocacy, all of those things. The big M role of marketing spans across that entire customer life cycle, and it helps the company to tell a consistent promise to the world and to deliver on that promise consistently from marketing, sales, operations, and delivery, every step of the journey. So when I talk about the little M dilemma, I'm talking about marketing being minimized and subordinate to sales in a way that doesn't create long-term, healthy, stable revenue growth and profitability in the business, because marketing needs to play a role in the quality of service and product delivery, in the evolution of that go-to-market and delivery mechanism, and in building strong advocacy and raving fans. That is the ultimate flywheel. Healthy revenue looks like retention and growth with existing happy buyers.
And so, to your point, like going back to the puberty example, we start off this way and it's necessary, right? Like it's a founder led, and so the founder is wearing a whole bunch of hats, and so it falls under the sales and marketing for a little bit, and then eventually it falls to maybe a sales leader. And eventually, maybe you should say it's time to break that out. How do you recognize when you're at that point where you're saying, nope, this needs to be separated?
Yeah, it usually is at a point where the company feels pretty confident about their overall growth strategy. You know, they have a business plan, they have a strong leadership team, they know what they're aiming to do in terms of growth. And it's also when they have a critical mass of marketing activation happening. They are spending probably close to 6 figures or more, 6 to 7 figures, depending on whether they're B2B or B2C, in marketing activation, whether it's advertising spend, digital channels, marketing ops, internal staff, agency partners. They're spending a lot of money, but they are missing the ladder that connects strategy all the way through to that execution. So they have a lot of activity, and it can be a lot of good things and a lot of good engagement, but they don't have any clear understanding of how that activity actually feeds into healthy growth for the business. So that's usually when we start to hear, you know, a recognition and sometimes a humbling from the leadership team to say, all right, we thought we knew how to lead marketing or even how to hire to build the right team, but we're at the point where we recognize that we don't. And we need somebody who can be a very modern marketing orchestrator for this organization and who can sit on the leadership team and help us think long-range brand and value creation and short-term alignment and enablement of sales and, you know, the operational delivery of the business.
Yeah. I think you said that this is more for like sales, but I'll clarify, this is also very much happening within e-commerce, where it's just tactical things for marketing. And so it's like they're running the ads, they're doing the emails, they're doing the SMS pushes, they're doing the things. They've got their sales that they're running, right? And they're putting up the image of their hero banner on the website. Like they're doing the tactics, and there's like a calendar, there's like a marketing calendar, whatever. But there's like this lack of strategy and how it's all fitting together. What do you see as in the businesses that you work with as these warning signs that a company is outgrowing that tactical marketing and they need strategy now to come in?
Yeah. Well, by the time we start a conversation with a company, they probably have quite a bit of built up scar tissue and PTSD around the word marketing. Sure. Because what has happened is when they have felt the angst of uncertainty about what marketing is contributing to the business, there's often a lot of misplaced blame. Agencies get fired and called incompetent. Employees burn out because they're completely under-resourced to do the job being asked of them because nobody's advocating and helping the leadership team understand the burden of what's being asked. So a lot of companies have gone through a lot of churn. They don't know how to make agency partners successful for them, and they are cautious and don't trust agencies anymore, potentially. And they have had turnover in their marketing department if they have marketing team members because they don't have the right coaching, development, and opportunity to grow and be successful and well-resourced in their role. So that's happening. That's one of the things that creates enough pain that a company starts to say, hey, we don't know how to hire properly, how to manage properly, and we don't know which agencies we need or when or how to make them successful with us, right? Yep. The other thing that happens is that businesses reach some critical growth moments and crossroads where maybe the playbook that they've run to get them to the growth they have today has worked, and it's even kind of an engine that hums along, right? It's profitable, it's working, maybe there's incremental steady growth, but now the ownership and the leadership has decided that the business needs to grow differently. They're going to grow through acquisition, or they're going to launch a new product, or they're going to enter a new market where the brand isn't known. And the playbook that has worked so far lacks no strategy to guide something so pivotal in change in the business. So those are the things that happen that create the tension to say, okay, we don't know what we're doing or how to build a team and program that can be successful and scale with us. And we can't just continue to churn and burn bridges. And or we've built a great team, but the great team that we have or the great playbook that we have isn't going to fit where we're going next. And we actually don't know how to architect that or how to think about redistributing resources. Those are two sides of what often is happening.
Yeah. And we see that all the time. And to your point, we've been on the receiving end of that as an agency, as a growth agency, as an advertising agency. It's like, okay, we're the fifth agency in the last 6 months, right? And you're just like, I mean, there's a good chance, maybe that's a hyperbole, but there's a good chance that when you get to this point where you're like, I don't think that you have an advertising problem. I think you have a product market fit problem. I think you have a retention problem. There's something else that's going on here. Because clearly you haven't found that many bad agencies. You could have. Like, I will say that that's not impossible, because there are a lot of bad players in the space that can just, not intentionally, just maybe not as effective, but usually that's a good sign that you're missing something strategically that you need to break whatever that plateau is that you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple things happen when Authentic comes to the table. We ask our clients to not make any sudden moves. Let us get inside the business and assess your existing agency and vendor relationships and assess your current staff. Because while they might think they have a problem with their marketing coordinator, or they might think they have a problem with their agency, what we almost always find, almost always, not always, but almost always find that those players are competent. They're just not well directed or integrated, because nobody on the inside speaks their language and can align their swim lanes to work together. And so in the absence of good collaboration and a common language, agencies will do their best to figure it out on the outside of the business, but they're running a little blind. You probably aren't leveraging their very best capabilities because you haven't translated them into your business and you don't have the right person there to do it. So our model is unique in that when we come in as a fractional CMO, we're not an outside consultant. We're not just one more consultant or agency. We become an insider sitting at the leadership table with full accountability to be that orchestrator and to provide that translation so that we can accurately help the company assess, do we have the right partners? Are they integrated properly? Do their capabilities fit what we actually need right now? Or are we activating a channel strategy that we're not ready for yet and we need to slow that down and go somewhere else next? So we bring that level of confidence and thoughtful resource management. And that's why I've chosen not to be an agency. Because there are many agencies who've added, quote, fractional CMO to their list of capabilities, but that fractional CMO is actually an agency account manager whose job it is to sell the agency's services.
Sure.
At Authentic, we don't have any agency services. We simply provide the right leader who represents the client's best interests, and they can be truly agnostic and dedicated resource managers.
You brought up this idea of marketing having a seat at the executive table. And so let's run with that for a little bit more. That said, you also told me before that directors aren't CMOs. Explain the tension between the two.
Yeah. Well, and there's even tension in how many of us as owners of growth businesses have been trained to think about the right org chart or accountability chart, because there are a lot of materials that would say, you have a CEO or visionary, you should have a head of sales and marketing, a head of ops and delivery or services, and a head of finance and admin. That's kind of your skeleton org chart. And I know, as a founder who bootstrapped my company and still am growing it that way, that you can't fill every seat with a true executive right out of the gates. You really can't. You shouldn't. Right. But there become times when you really need the wisdom of a true executive. And that was the whole philosophy for why I started Authentic, was that I recognized that most businesses wait far too long to bring a senior level marketing leader in. And even when they do, a director level is probably going to be tucked under a VP of sales and marketing, or a VP or a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. And that person is almost always the head of sales. So it puts marketing, even with a very capable director, in a subservient role that is going to be focused on a sales funnel driven mindset of tactics that impact today's pipeline. And that is really missing out in the bigger strategic role of marketing across the entire customer journey. So I think I've said enough here, William, that I actually have forgotten what your original question is now. So I might not have even answered that. I was doing a big, long setup on that.
No, we're getting there. And so it's this idea of the difference between the director and the CMO. And so let me piggyback off that. What does a true CMO do in an executive meeting that most marketers or director marketers are not doing?
Yeah. So we actually have, and you can find this on our website, our Authentic Growth Marketing Roadmap. And as part of that roadmap, we have roles along the left side showing at the strategy level of the organization, the executive roles involved. And then as you move down the roadmap, you get down to like the marketing foundation, and underneath that, it's resources, it's budget and people, and underneath that, it's management of people, programs, and process, and under that, it's tactical execution. All right, so I grew up through all of those responsibilities in my own career. I was a marketing specialist and then became a marketing manager and then a director and a senior director before I was ever an EVP. And those are very fundamentally different jobs. A director of marketing is going to be able to play at that layer of people, program, process management, and assemble the team underneath that's going to deliver on the channel and the content and the tactical strategies. That's what a director does. A CMO knows how to navigate pivotal go-to-market decision-making with the entire executive team. Decisions around product lineup, pricing strategy, market saturation, competitive differentiation, mergers and acquisitions, all of these pivotal decisions that happen to support the growth of a business at the executive level. That's where a CMO plays. And then they also lead all the way through that roadmap. So when we step into an organization as a fractional CMO, half of our clients don't even have marketing staff yet. So our role has to be incredibly scrappy. We have to sit at the top with the strategic executive expertise, and then we have to lead all the way down until we get the resources in place that can scale underneath, right? That doesn't mean that we're writing social media posts, like we're going to use our time effectively, but we have to be able to understand exactly how you build marketing from the ground up and put pieces in place at level with where the business is at.
I feel like having a seat at the table allows marketing to be more cross-functional, right? They're now interacting more with ops. They're interacting more with finance. When that happens, what fundamentally changes within the business now that that's more marketing cross-functional?
Yeah, well, conversations start to happen that weren't happening before. Like I was just talking with a CMO the other day about how one of their clients had set this growth objective to, whatever the growth was that they wanted to ramp up in sales. And they had built a sales organization to do that, to like go get all this new business. And they were starting to show some impact in their pipeline around that goal. But nobody had stopped to ask, how are we able to operationalize? If we get these sales, do we have the capacity to support that growth? Or are we going to get ourselves in a position to have to create a wait list with new buyers or existing customers that starts to erode the brand promise and the experience and the quality? So marketing, think of the CMO as the person who's holding the hand of the sales leader who wants to go get more business, and holding the hand of the delivery leader saying, can we even deliver and still maintain our brand promise and our experience that we want? Can this be quality, healthy, authentic growth? Or is this going to be chaotic growth that demoralizes our team, strains our systems, breaks our process, and erodes our brand? Because it takes forever to build brand trust and equity, and just, a few bad decisions to erode it.
I've run into this exact same scenario, or very similar scenario in e-commerce. We had a client that said, hey, our goal is to double our ad spend month over month. We're crushing it. You guys are doing a great job. ROAS is way off the charts, right? Let's go. We're going to double our sales goal. And that's the directive from the marketing. We're excited about that. Obviously, we charge a % of ad spend. It's a very exciting thing for us. And so, normal agency would probably just go ahead and spend it without any other thought. But we're very integrated, and we believe that we're working with their CFO. We're working with their ops team as well. We think that is just necessary. And so our question is, great, how much inventory do you have? Oh, you only have 50% more inventory. Well, we can't double the budget if you don't have double the inventory, because then you're just going to end up spending very unprofitably. This is not going to be good for your business. And so similarly, that's that idea where it's like even the marketing team within that organization, they weren't communicating it. So we're trying to help them build those bridges between those different functions, because that's when it allows them to grow profitably and thoughtfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of scenarios there where that cross-functional leadership really shows up. Another, we serve clients across all different business models and sectors. And you tend to see that either businesses are started by visionary people who know how to sell, but might not be the people who actually develop the product or service, or they're started by brilliant engineer minds who know how to build a product, but they might not know how to sell, right? When we're working with engineering-minded companies or even partner-led firms with core expertise, they often, and let's talk about a product company or a SaaS company. Okay. You and I both grew up in the SaaS world, right? So SaaS companies are usually started by brilliant technologists, right? And they care about the precision of the product. So what we generally find when we show up is that they have over budgeted into product engineering and design and development and have never invested properly in voice of customer research and market research to understand what elements of the product matter most and are most highly valued by the ideal end users, right? And so they're out of balance, and marketing has to take a cross-functional look at what's in the budget, who's on staff, how do we create the right balance of listening to the market, because we've all seen well-established, best-in-class Cadillac software solutions that have been around for 10 years suddenly get eaten for lunch by the new kid on the block that brought 3 out of their 30 components to market faster with better marketing. And it's exactly what the market needed, right?
So let's say that we get this person at the table. Let's say that you're a $25 million brand, and we get our fractional CMO involved. What are likely the main 1 or 2 things that they're stuck with that they likely need to come in and fix for this organization?
Well, I wish that I could tell you it's the same things every time. That would make our success in onboarding easy. The first thing they have to do is find out what the unique answer to that question is. And so we've designed a very tight, rigorous discovery and onboarding process that allows our CMOs to step in from day one and play a dual role, as we say, be both at the helm right away as a strategic advisor on the leadership team, and quickly under the hood for the diagnostics. And we've developed specific tools to help us very quickly get the voice of our clients' input into that, and then assess and analyze and look at the artifacts and everything that they have in motion today. Because what we're looking for is where are their really strong muscles, where are their weak and undeveloped muscles, and how do we create balance across the body of what marketing needs to be. And it looks different in every company. Some companies we enter have spent a lot of time and have been very thoughtful in building out their brand and their message, and they've got it nailed. But they're completely not set up when it comes to a thoughtful MarTech stack or any process around that. Then we come into other companies that have really rigorous marketing operations, but they've got all the engineering and marketecture to support a really bad message. Like, it's not a formed message. It's not reaching the right audience. So it doesn't matter that their technology is mature, right? So we have to find where the gaps are. We always are having to help them navigate how do they think about budgeting for marketing, what's the rationale, what are the theses that we need to embrace. And every company has a different thesis or set of theses around marketing investment, because the benchmarks are different across industries. And then you've got businesses that are modeled differently. Some of them are VC or PE backed, and they've got money they need to deploy and quickly. And others are bootstrapped like my business, and they're found, privately held, and they want to thoughtfully invest, but it's not going to move as fast, right? So I love that you pronounced the plural of theses correct, because I feel like a lot of people missed that. So first of all, thank you. That was very good. My little literature heart jumped for joy.
But as far as this idea of like there needing to be this custom, I'm going to the Timberwolves game tonight. And so that's on my mind a little bit. Basketball. I grew up playing basketball. I love basketball. And similarly, it's like if you said, well, what do you need to do to turn a team around? And it's like, man, it depends. Do you have somebody who can shoot but not rebound? Do you have somebody who's rebounding but you can't shoot? And it's like, it really depends on doing that assessment first and figuring out like, where are the gaps within the team? within the organization and figuring that out. And then you can apply the right thing because all of these components are necessary. You just don't know where that is until you kind of look at the pieces.
And I don't know much about professional basketball, but I do remember a story I heard, and I don't know what team this was or at what level, but a story about a coach who inherited a really underperforming basketball team. And he actually started by changing their socks and their shoes.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
I gotta know why.
What? I gotta find this. Maybe I'll ask my friend ChatGPT where this story came from. But it was because like they didn't have shoes with good arch support and the right grips. Their socks were causing their feet weren't healthy. You know, like he literally started at like super foundational, but he ended up building an absolute dominant basketball team over a few years of like find the problem you can fix right now that's actually going to systemically impact everything. So I got to go find that. Somebody who's listening knows what I'm talking about, and I didn't just make this up.
I believe you, but I love that. I don't know the story, but I love that idea of just, I mean, let's just even talk about feet for a second. Like, think about how foundational it is. It's like if you're walking, if you're running, and if you're jumping, it's like all of those things need to happen. And it's like, well, what's the feet of our business? Like, what are those things that you're building off of that? And it's like, well, you and I are both in marketing, so I'm going to say marketing is a big part of that, right? So let's just say, what's the feet of marketing? And it is those foundational things, kind of like what you're just saying, where it's like none of the other tactics matter if you don't have a good foundation, if you don't have a good, strategy around what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm stretching here, but I like the idea.
There's a couple of things I want to reflect on that. So
Okay.
A funny quote from a past colleague of mine was in regards to like companies that have really robust architecture and marketing automation and campaigns and content and prolific activities, but they have never really buttoned up their message and their strategy and their unique value proposition. His comment on that is all these activities you're doing is just making your brand suck faster to more people.
Sure.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that can happen. So like message and brand is foundational. It's absolutely foundational. You should not be revving up activity if you're not clear on that. But also I like to say, and you know that in the life we've both lived in marketing has gone from, 30 years ago when I entered the scene, marketing was a discipline that had like 5 tools in its tool belt, and now there's 5 million. I mean, it's just exponential, the number of technologies, tactics, and tricks you could use as a marketer. It's unlimited. But in that complex landscape that's growing ever more complex, faster than ever, marketing fundamentals are as simple as ever. Not easy, but simple.
Yeah.
And it's really about answering 4 questions, which is, who do we want to matter to? Why should we matter to them? How do we enter their natural habitat? And when we get there, how do we build trust, right? Not sell something, build trust. And then how do we do that at scale? Because a lot of businesses succeed in doing those things within their known networks, right? When I started Authentic, my first clients were people who already knew Jennifer Zick, trusted me, wanted to work with me. So I knew who I wanted to matter to, why I mattered to them, how I was in their natural habitat. I was already there and I already had their trust. But building brand at scale to earn the trust of people who haven't known you before, and then deliver on the promise that you make to them so that they trust you more, and then not break that promise as you go by making bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You brought up the idea of fractional. And I think this is an interesting concept because fractional has changed a lot over the last, few years here. It seems like fractional is seen as a bridge, and I admit that that's typically how I have viewed fractional as well. You're going to get somebody in here, like this is in my thought, right? You're going to get somebody in here who is going to provide that strategic top-down CMO approach. They're going to make sure that they put the right people in place, the right processes in place, and then you let like your director take over from there.
Yeah.
Why is that wrong?
That's a question I wouldn't have been able to answer 9 years ago when I started Authentic, because first of all, when I started my business, I didn't even know the word fractional yet. I just knew that small growth businesses needed access to true marketing executive wisdom sooner than they thought they did. And the way that I wanted to bring it to them was on a part-time basis, contracted, but with a seat at the table. That's what I knew. And my first hypothesis for my business was that we would be a bridge solution. I'm going to create a methodology, which we now call authentic growth. I'm going to train our CMOs to bring this methodology, which is a complete marketing operating system, into these businesses, sit at the leadership table, help build that marketing operational platform, address some of the weak points, shore it up a bit, and then either promote somebody in from the company to continue running it or bring someone in from the outside to sit in that seat. And you're right that for most small, mid-sized businesses, they wouldn't at that point be ready for a full-time CMO. They would have been a manager or director level person. So my first generational thinking about this was we're going to be in there for about a year, then we're going to hand it off and they're going to smooth sailing. Well, a few years down the line, that started to become challenged from two directions. First, the clients who chose to keep us on longer, their results kept getting stronger and stronger. So that made me question, like, if my value prop should truly be ended at 12 months, right? We were walking ourselves out of delivering greater value for the client. The other thing that was happening is for the clients that we did hand off the work to, we had finally gotten them to this big M kind of thinking, and then they put marketing in a little M role underneath the head of sales and marketing. And it just went from being think strategically, here's a framework to behave strategically, to operate tactically and being asked to think strategically, but not empowered, never empowered to say, no, not yet. And let me get into the conversation with you about the big things happening in the business so that I can be strategic. So those two things were happening. And so over the last several years, we've really changed the way that we approach client engagements to say, we're going to be on a journey together. It's a multi-year journey. A year goes quickly. You build a marketing plan and a budget for a year and you implement it over 90-day sprints. You learn, the market changes. We certainly live in a very dynamic world right now. The plan that you started the year with won't be where you end the year with, and you have to stay very agile. And then the next year comes flying in really fast. So what I'm observing now, which is super interesting, is that at least in the marketing space that we're in, fractional it went from being like a bridge solution to a long-term relationship. And now I'm seeing it take a new shape as a forever solution for many of our clients. And when I say forever, I mean for the life cycle of their business, because many of the SMB companies that we work with are positioning themselves to be acquired. Many of them are PE backed, and we're going to build value with them for 3 to 5 years. It makes no sense for them to bring in a full-time permanent headcount when they need to create fluidity in their P&L and be flexible. And the fact is, when they're going to lead their business through a major transformation like an acquisition, they actually need real executive advisors in there leading change management, integrating brands and solutions. So we've led M&As through multiple acquisitions for the same core client, right? So, and then the other thing that's happening that's fascinating is that AI, which we embrace at Authentic, but with what we call authentic intelligence, which is never devaluing the human relational aspect that is the heart of building a brand and marketing. We're not out to get rid of humans, but we're out to leverage AI appropriately and thoughtfully to accelerate what we can do. Right? And it really, really does. So our CMOs who work fractionally for our clients are now leveraging our methodology backed up by AI, research backed up by AI. There's so much solutioning that's accelerated that the role that would have been filled by a full-time CMO on staff can now be delivered on a part-time basis with much more efficiency. And the teams underneath are changing shape too. What used to be marketing teams that were made up of a variety of internal roles and agency partners outside are now more often made up of a fractional CMO, 1 to 2 program, project, or operating leaders, day-to-day spinning the plates, and then a variety of agencies, contractors, offshore, AI solutions. So it's a dynamic time to build a marketing organization, and a lot of executives are realizing that the marketing seat is a very dynamic seat. So to fill it with a permanent headcount and count on that one person's realm of experience being able to ebb and flow with them is a pretty risky maneuver.
We've seen this a lot of times in other areas where, let's say that you do have that really great director, right? Like they're absolutely sensational, but you no longer have that CMO over top of them, even fractionally, right? You remove that fractional CMO for a second. Let's say that you don't put them underneath the sales director. Let's say that they still operate independently, right? They have a seat at the table, but the person who's leading them, managing them is the founder CEO, and they have no idea how to set any measurable goals for them. They have no idea, well, the right ones, right? They have no idea how to help them fix something if it's broken or if it's wrong. They lack the ability to be able to effectively guide them to make sure that they're still going in the right direction. And so to your point, it's like, look, they charted their course and they are on this direction, but if they were off by 1 degree within a year, that's a pretty significant amount of space and distance from where they're supposed to be. And so having that true marketing leader over top of them helps to clarify, course correct, make sure that they're staying on track.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple other things to think about in that scenario in particular, because if that marketing leader is on the leadership team, but working with a, visionary CEO, what often happens with full-time employees is that when they're hired new, they have about a year of optimistic opportunity to be change agents and bring new solutions to the table and have a CEO who's open-minded because they're bringing someone in new and they expect them to make change. But after about a year, what happens for most employees is that they end up getting immersed in and assimilated into whatever the cultural norms are in that business, the politics, the positioning, the loudest voices. And they start to, whether you want to or not, you start to lead from a position of self-preservation because your job is on the line, right? And so one of the real benefits of bringing in a fractional head of any department that's not your core for the business is that the person who is fractional isn't trying to preserve their full-time job. They get to be and need to be your truth teller. They will challenge the CEO. I mean, if you bring a real executive in, so authentic CMOs are not yes men and women. They don't wait for the CEO to tell them what they're going to be measured by or how to fix something. They tell the CEO what they're going to be measured by and what to expect from them and how they're going to fix something. And then they look for alignment with the CEO. And if the CEO is asking for something outside of left field, they're going to stand toe to toe and negotiate and understand the trade-offs and then get an alignment, right? So that's the difference. You need to have executives who are not intimidated by the CEO, who want to collaborate, who are all humbly confident in representing the company's best interests and aren't trying to posture and politic and preserve.
Yeah. What is one metric that those CMOs should be looking at that maybe a lot of leadership teams aren't currently?
Well, in the clients that we serve, it's sometimes shocking. It shouldn't be anymore after 9 years of this, how few real insights they have around marketing and healthy revenue performance. And often that's because they've never had the leadership to put systems in place to collect accurate data, which can gather over time to become insightful, organized data with patterns. Once you have enough data over time, you can see patterns. And once you can see patterns, eventually you can glean insights, right? And that takes time to stack up over years of bringing data together. So many of our clients have been stuck in performance metrics, engagement metrics, activity levels, rather than the kinds of marketing metrics that help them measure healthy contribution to the growth of the business and the value creation of the business. So some of the metrics that we home in on in our role, or we build the infrastructure to be able to get to, would be CAC, or cost of acquisition, LTV, lifetime value of any customer. We're looking at NPS scores, net promoter scores, CSAT, customer satisfaction. We're looking at retention and churn. We're looking at, cross-sell, upsell within accounts. We're looking at how long does it take to close a deal? How clean is your deal pipeline? Are they sandbagging? Is it real? Can we actually accurately forecast on this? All of those kinds of things are the metrics that really matter to help turn the dials and the levers to optimize the performance between sales and marketing. If you're a B2B or B2C company that has a sales organization and a marketing organization, those metrics bleed together and they have to work together.
You said home in. You don't know how happy I am to hear you say that one correctly too. These are things that people get wrong all the time.
Oh, I know. I pick these little fights with my team all the time, and I'll ask them, "Do you think it's this or this?" Because I'm an communications major and an English minor. And
Okay.
now that I've said I'm a nerdy word girl, I will definitely say something wrong on this the rest of this call.
For sure, that's how it goes. I have a poem that I have to send you. It's called "The Chaos" by Richard something. I don't remember his name. Really, really interesting, but it's just like all of these different English words and how they're not spelled anywhere like what you would think. They're very, very good. I think he was like a French guy or something, but I will send it to you afterwards. I don't have it all remembered, but it's called "The Chaos." But I'm also a very wordy nerd person, and so I just you said it, and I was like, man, everybody gets that wrong, and I appreciated that. Okay, back on track here. If marketing is working perfectly, then so we bring in the right fractional person, we set all these things up, we're tracking the right things. What's that CEO going to feel? How do they know that it's finally working correctly and that it's not just we've got a bunch of metrics that says that we're doing a good job, but business isn't any different? Like, how do they start to know that it's on the right track and that things are about to shift for them?
Yeah. Well, there's two things I want to say to this. I'm going to write them down a little bit so I don't lose my thought. CEO. Okay. So first of all, Nirvana might get reached in terms of your marketing program and plan and performance, and it's never, ever permanent. Because just like we saw this past year in America, we had clients whose, everything that was in place was working, all ships were rising, things were humming along, and suddenly tariffs changed.
Yeah.
And everything went up in the air, and suddenly you're rebuilding a plan in real time for how do you go to market and make a brand promise while knowing your pricing is going to change every single day because you don't know, right? Like, how do you carry your brand promise through times of volatility, times of rapid change? So first of all, a CEO should never bank on, well, we're going to get our sales and marketing teams, to build a strategy and build a plan and build a program, and then it's going to create a flywheel that just keeps producing. There is no golden goose when it comes to this because markets change and businesses change. But in our engagement within our methodology of authentic growth, we use a simple tool, a 20-question survey called the Random Acts of Marketing Assessment. We also use another tool that we've built called the Growth Survey. When we onboard clients, we have various leaders in the organization take the Random Acts of Marketing Assessment, and then the top 2 to 3 executives take the Growth Survey. We repeat the Random Acts Assessment every single quarter, and we repeat the Growth Survey every year. And so we're comparing their own assessment to their prior assessment. So we're baselining that. And we're looking across these 20 different question attributes in that assessment. And what we find consistently when I did an analysis of over 2,000 responses last year is that across the board in our client engagements, not only do clients report a lift on 4 or 5 of the attributes, but consistently across the board, all 20 of those attributes are rising in the confidence, clarity, and performance. And the first thing that changes in that assessment is the question around the confidence that they have in that they have a marketing leader who has the skills and the ability and the capacity to lead, that they feel confident in that. When we start, they don't have that confidence because they haven't had that person. The first thing that spikes in their survey by the first full quarter is their confidence in the leader. And then all the other metrics follow behind. So it's not automagical. You're not going to move from a 35, score out of 100 on your Random Acts of Marketing Assessment to being an 85 next quarter. But you will make that progress with us quarter over quarter over quarter. And that's why we've gone from being a bridge solution that just teaches you how to do this to being a confident leader that stays with you on the journey, because progress is forever. Markets will keep changing. Your business will keep changing. So there's always work to be done. So that's what a CEO and the leadership team is going to feel. They're going to feel confidence, clarity, alignment, and that they have the right sized resource plan around their marketing.
Huge. I always think it's interesting to learn more about the human beings behind these wise words. And so I want to learn more about Jennifer Zick today. You told me that you kind of grew up in scarcity a little bit. Tell me about that, and how did that shape you to be the leader that you are today?
It brings me a lot of joy to think back to really God's faithfulness in my life at every single step, and kind of where I started and the life I started in, and also the way I was provided for and how that life has grown and changed. But, Yeah, when I was born to teenage parents, my mom and dad were teenagers and had 4 kids by the time my mom was 24. They didn't have any financial support from their families, and so they certainly struggled. And
Wow.
my dad struggled with drug addiction from the beginning. My mom was a person of great faith and fortitude in the midst of the struggle. Not to say she didn't have her challenges, but she made a stable life for us, even in those times when, we lived in the trailer court and we were living off of food stamps and my dad would disappear for long periods of time. And so we didn't have stability, but we had a lot of love and a firm foundation through our mom. And so I definitely grew up in a home that didn't have extra resources. There was a lot of stress around finances. By the time I was 12, I was earning my keep and, working extra jobs to afford whatever it is that I might need or want above and beyond my basic needs. But I built a really strong faith basis and a really strong work ethic from a young age. And the people around me, including my mom, my grandma, teachers, others, poured into me and spoke into my life about strengths that they saw. And I just caught a vision for a bigger life than the life that I had seen around me in my small town. And I was given some opportunities to experience a world that was bigger than that. And I fell in love with that. And so I just, I continued making cautious decisions as I went through college and into marriage and into my career. But I also was blessed with a lot of really amazing experiences along the way. And it was several years ago when I was 35 years old and I had 3 little kids. That I had a great stable career at that point, a really meaningful career, and so did my husband, and we were so blessed. But when I was 35, I survived ovarian cancer. And that experience, anybody will tell you that's faced, the possibility of imminent mortality, you face your mortality like that. For some people, like for myself, it wakes you up to the preciousness of life. We all have just this one short, precious life. And, I had always been a person of faith, but I started to recognize that I had made a lot of decisions out of fear and scarcity. And I wanted to learn how to make decisions out of faith and abundance and joy. And so that's been a journey I've been on. That's been over the last 10 plus years of leaning into more faith, more joy in my decision making and learning to make decisions out of love. And that's taken a lot of therapy, a lot of inner work and healing, a lot. But it's totally transformed the way I think about the world. And when I was 39, so a few years after that cancer scare, was when I lost my job for the first time. And I had still been building a thoughtful, cautious career, with a steady paycheck. And when I lost my job, it pushed me off a cliff in the very best possible way, because it gave me just that moment to evaluate my life and what I really wanted from life and decide to make some decisions out of belief and faith and joy and nurture a little entrepreneurial seed that I hadn't even necessarily recognized that I had. So that was when I started Authentic from my kitchen table without much of a plan at all.
Love it.
But with a lot of faith, and it's just been a real blessing to build this business and build it from a place of love. I definitely also brought some, losing a job creates a lot of emotions too. So you could say that the launch of my business was fueled a little bit by that loss and anger and I will show you. But it really quickly turned into an opportunity to heal, to grow, and to lean into love. So that's been my journey, and I'm not perfect at it yet. I still catch myself sometimes being tempted to make a decision to avoid pain or because I'm afraid of something, but at least I can see it more now.
Mm-hmm. I love that you are able to look at things that other people would say are, tragedies, very bad things, and you look at them and you're calling them blessings, more or less. What are some of the ways? I mean, you talked about therapy and things like that, but what are some of the practical ways that you have begun to shift your mindset away from seeing them that way and being able to say, to your point, having a different frame of mind around those events?
Yeah.
Practical things that because I guarantee there are other founders that are going through things, that are struggling with things, that are making decisions out of fear. How did you break that cycle? What are some practical things?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that I threw into the pot together that have been a recipe to help me in this way. So I'll share a few of them. So first of all, you hear that you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So I have really intentionally built friendships with successful entrepreneurs that I admire for the way they hold their values front and center. They prioritize their families. They give their everything. Like, they have high energy and enthusiasm about what they do, but they don't lose themselves in the process of it. So I try to stay close with people whose lives look like what I'm aspiring to live. I start every single day with time reading my Bible and in prayer and just getting centered on foundational truths that help keep me rooted and grounded in making decisions out of a center of values and peace and faith and not fear. I put myself through a 12-step program because, as the daughter of an addict and the daughter of a codependent married to an addict, there were a lot of things that were wounds from my past that I had never been given language to understand, that I needed to go through a full year program of documenting and looking at through completely new eyes, and with mentorship and group talk. That was eye-opening for me, because I always thought only an addict needed a 12-step program, but it turns out any human being who's ever faced a struggle, which is any of us, can benefit from that. I worked with a therapist myself, doing some EMDR therapy and other things to just work through past trauma. My husband and I went into therapy to start building a vision for the marriage that we're crafting, not what we necessarily inherited. We've changed advisors in my business and in our life to help align with that vision. And I hired a business coach last year, an entrepreneur that I really admire, who's done some things really, hard fought, but well-earned wins. And I've been getting guidance from her, and I sit in 2 other CEO peer groups as well, because I shared with you before, like, I keep this scripture by the side of my desk, Proverbs 5:22, that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And I don't actually know what I'm doing. Every single day I'm living life for the first time and running my business from a new perspective. We're all just figuring out life for the first time. And I need wise counsel and wise advisors around me in functional advisory roles, mentors, spiritual guides, my personal strength trainers, all of those things. Those are a lot of the things I've thrown into the pot that has helped bubble up and refine, I think, who I am. And I really feel like I am a different person than I was 9 years ago when I started this business. And I need to be, to continue building the business and building the life that I see in front of me now.
Congratulations. It's so encouraging. There's so many things that you talked about that I absolutely love there. I'm with you on reading my Bible every morning. It's a non-negotiable, right? Like, I need to do that. You called out like this idea of starting with foundational truth. And it's like, you need to have that thing that you can stand on that you're like, but this here is a rock. This is true. And once I'm on solid ground, it makes all the other decisions a lot easier to do. And I really appreciate that verse of having wise counsel around you. I feel like I've been blessed to have so many good mentors as well, spiritual mentors, business mentors, going to parenting and like all kinds of things, right? Like, whatever it is that I'm trying to work through. I think that's just really, really cool that you've gone through that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's like one of the blessings, is to be able to share that part of my story. And I really do count all of the bumps along the way really are blessings, when you can understand that what's happening isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And when you embrace that it's happening for you, it's not just happening for you, it's happening for the people whose lives you get to touch. I hope that we can be shining a light and being an encouragement, because the world needs it now more than ever.
For sure. Yes, we need a lot more light in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your mom closet.
I love this. Okay, well, Andy, if you saw my LinkedIn post from today, it was about...
I didn't see it.
Oh my gosh, my mom closet is mentioned. It was about comparing the role of a fractional CMO to the role of a general contractor. And this, is because my husband and I have embarked on finishing our basement. We've lived in our home for 21 years.
Yep.
We always thought we would be moving somewhere else, but our kids have gotten so rooted where we live, and now they're launching. We've got one out of college, one in college, one in high school. The family dynamic is growing. And the really weird thing that happens that nobody told me would happen at this stage of life, you start to think that maybe you could downsize your home. But instead what happens is the kids are gone most of the time. But when they come home now, they're bringing plus ones. My daughter's bringing a cat. We've got 2 dogs. My kids are like full grown adults who need more space of their own. And then they bring all their friends over, which is like truly my dream. I love being in the house with all the friends. But like, we don't need more space all the time, but we need more space. And we each need more personal space because all the bodies in the house are big grown-up people now. So when we decided to finally finish our basement, which used to be just the kids' hockey rink down there, I had to carve out a section that I call my mom closet because nowhere in my entire house do I have a room that's just for me. I do not work at home. So the home office is my husband's because he works at home. So I don't have any place I can close the door and be alone without my dogs and my kids nearby when they're there. So I have a mom closet that's being built now, and it doesn't even have a single window, but it has all the space for me to organize the things that I want. And I told you, William, that I actually started a new hobby for the first time in, 25 years.
That's right.
So for the first time since I got married and started having children, now that they're launching, I have a little extra margin to do things that I want to do for myself, including art. And so now I have a space for my supplies. It's blissful. I go down every day and look at how the construction progress is coming along. It's all framed in. My outlets are ready to plug my, hot glue gun into. I don't know what I'll plug in, but I'll find something.
Yeah. So like, what is your art medium of choice?
Well, I went into college as a studio art major and a vocal music minor because I came out of high school a passionate performer. I was a theater girl and a music girl and choir and band and a speech and drama girl, right? And I didn't know how to convert that into a career. And I was the first in my family to go to college. So I also didn't know what to do with myself. So I went in as a studio art major and realized I'm not good enough to actually make a career out of any of this. I need to pick a real career path. But in college, I got to dabble in pottery and ceramics, which I absolutely love. And I will do that again someday, but you need to be able to be in a studio several days a week. And I can't do that yet. So what I've chosen for right now is watercolor paint. And I am having so much fun because when I stop and I get all my supplies out and I sit down, time slows down, my brain declutters. I'm not thinking about work. I love it. It's very therapeutic. And I've started getting my kids and my mom involved. So when they're around, we do it as a group project. It's so fun.
We moved my podcast room maybe a month ago or so. So people who are watching this might notice the background's slightly different. We moved it out of the house, actually over to another location, which gave us an extra room. We turned that room into an art room. And so my wife is a lot more artistic than I am, but I like art as well. And when we do our anniversary, when we always do like a trip for our anniversary, we like to do watercolors, and we will do watercolors kind of just like random things that we see. It might be like the place that we're staying at, or, we go to a wine bar and we're doing a watercolor of the people sitting in front of us or whatever it might be, right? We just like to do this. And so I'm not good at it. They're pretty bad, but it's just fun to do it. But I would say that I like to draw a little bit of something with pen and then watercolor around it. Do you draw first or do you just watercolor?
No, I just go straight for the paint and the paper. And I haven't done any formal training. I've watched a grand total of about 3 minutes of online tutorials because even in watercolor, I have 3 different mediums I'm playing with, from the watercolor, like packed paint, to the squeeze paint, to I just ordered watercolor pens. They all work. They're all super fun to play with, but here's who I am. I don't follow a recipe when I cook. I just throw things together till it seems like it tastes good. And I don't follow a tutorial when I paint. I just start. And watercolor is surprisingly forgiving, actually. You can it can start out looking really ugly and turn into something as you go. So I do look at other sources for inspiration, and then I take those concepts down to my paper, but it's just been so fun. I try not to give myself too many rules about it because I just want it to be, just a creative free-for-all.
That's the
And so
point of
this
art.
morning, it was so cute. This morning, my husband said to me, because I just started this, but I am already really loving it. He's like, "Oh, it makes me so happy to see your little watercolors throughout the house," because I've framed a couple of them. And I'm like, "Aw, that's so sweet."
That's so good. I love that. Speaking of your husband, I understand there's an interesting story about how you guys met. Maybe the song "Every Move You Make, I'll Be Watching You." I don't know. This stalker idea comes out.
Oh my gosh. This is such a fun podcast because you know so much about me already. Okay. So growing up in a small town with, my mom was a mostly stay-at-home mom, and a lot of the moms were. That was really my vision that I had for myself. And my teachers and others inspired me to go on to college. And I thought I was going to college to get a degree, get a husband, and then work for a little while, then stay home and have babies. And I thought I would be a stay-at-home mom, which is a very noble calling. So I had a plan, but I went into college. Before I even started thinking about meeting anybody, I was assigned to a registration group when we were coming onto campus that summer before classes started. And I had not yet declared my studio art major. I hadn't declared any major. I had just written on my college application that I was interested in computer graphic design or desktop publishing, which did not have a 4-year liberal arts degree. So they put me in the computer science registration group, which was a bunch of geek boys and then me, the cheerleader.
Yep.
And my now husband, who was a geology student, was actually working for the admissions office that summer, and he was assigned as the student helper to our group. So clearly I needed a lot of guidance because I didn't know how to register for, I didn't know whether I needed 5 credits or 50 or what general classes would be. So he literally sat beside me and helped me the whole time.
Nice.
So fast forward, at the end of the registration process, our faculty advisor handed our folders back, picked them up off the table. None of us knew that she'd given my folder to him and his to me.
Oh.
And we parted ways for the rest of the summer. I didn't think anything about him. Meanwhile, he went home, opened up his folder, and my senior photo fell out because I had been told to bring it to campus for the campus newspaper. So anyway, all summer long, he had my picture, and he's a very, he's a shy guy, thoughtful, shy, analytical dude. He had my picture, which he thought I slipped to him. So all summer, his confidence was building that I was into him, where I hadn't thought of him at all. And I'm an extrovert and very social. So when we came back to the small campus in the fall, I saw him. I went right up to him to say hello because that's what I do. And he was all the more boosted in believing that I was really into him. And so right on the spot, he's like, "Hey, we should hang out sometime, watch a movie." I'm like, "That'd be great," because I have no friends, right? And so we did start hanging out. We did start hanging out, and about a month later, after we were officially dating, I saw his room for the first time, and my picture was hanging on his wall. And that's when the whole story unraveled. I'm like, "Where did you get my photo, you stalker?" So you can call it fate or intervention or just serendipity, but that's how we met, and it's been 30 years since then.
I absolutely love that story. I think it's so funny when, like you said, serendipitously something like that happens that we otherwise, you can't plan for that. I think this actually happens in marketing a lot as well, in growing a business. I don't know if you feel this way as well, but there are things that we feel like we can plan. We're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and this is going to happen, and that doesn't happen. But something else happens as a result of just kind of being in the right place at the right time. And if you hadn't done those right things, then you still wouldn't be there. And so, there's all the things that we can measure, and then there's all the things that we can't measure when it comes to marketing, but just life in general.
Oh, it's so true. And the older I get, and hopefully wiser, the more I recognize that almost everything is actually outside of my control. There are some things under my influence, but there's almost nothing within my control unless it has to do with my own behavior, right? So learning to live in abundance, a big part of that is learning to live in a posture of surrender and choosing not to be anxious about and grasping for and striving for the things you can't control, but thoughtfully, intentionally planning and taking the next step, bravely moving forward, and then welcoming those unknown disruptions as probably interventions because there's a plan that's better than my plan, right? So, yeah.
It reminds me of a Bible verse that I have on my memory list that I want to memorize. But I had to look it up real quick. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. It's like, oh, that's so good. If we have plans and we're diligent, we follow through, it's like that leads towards good things. But very often, rushing, hastiness, that lack of planning, whatever, it's going to lead towards sometimes very, very quick growth and then very quick decline as well, right? Or just no growth or whatever. It's just like it doesn't lead towards the things that you want.
Yeah. And if you think about that verse that you just shared, like profit and poverty don't only have to be financial.
For sure.
There's another scripture that says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And we see that all around us in this world, people who have the wealth, the power, the influence, but they've sold their souls to get it, right? Or they've stomped on relationships and they've lost trust, or they've just done terrible things. And like, I would much rather be modestly successful with my values intact, than very successful with bridges burned and relationships damaged and blood on my hands, so to speak.
Jennifer, you have shared so much awesome wisdom with us, and you've given me a lot to think about. If people want to work with you or they want to follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, to connect with me personally, LinkedIn is a great platform. I'm easy to find because I'm very chatty on LinkedIn. So Jennifer Zick. To connect with Authentic, you can find us online at authenticbrand.com. It's singular and all one word. So authenticbrand.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to be a resource. If you're in any kind of a growth role in a growing business, I think you'll find some great little nuggets on our site. So thank you so much for including me here today.
Thank you for correcting me. I said authentic brands at the beginning, and I really apologize about that. So thank you for making sure everybody heard that it is singular, authentic brand.
Of course. And don't worry about it. It's a common mistake.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.